But for anyone watching online, my name's Liam Barrett. I'm the managing director at US Sports Scholarships, and we're super excited and fortunate to have James on here, who has had a phenomenal playing career, but then also, in fact, actually, I'll probably just hold it there because James, part of what he's going to cover is his career, but also how he's able to have such a long and extended career, and I guess from his perspective, really optimize and get the most out of his ability with that. So, oh, one more coming in here. Um, so yeah, thanks again for joining us, James, and I'll pass it over to you. And yeah, if you need anything, anyone else, just drop a message in the chat.
Brilliant. Thank you, Liam. Yeah, I'll just sort of start by going through again what we're going to cover. Um, what we'll cover three things. I'm going to share my journey as a player and as a person. I think it's important to share both. Balance for me was massive as I went through my journey, both on the pitch and off the pitch. How building a professional mindset changed my life. So how thinking differently and learning to think differently changed my life again, both on and off the pitch. And how Pro Mindset Academy can help you on your journey to success, whatever that looks like for you as a player and as a person. So, what I want to try and do in half an hour is add value to you, give you a different perspective on what elite performance is, and what that looks like again, sort of on and off the pitch. So if I go right back to the beginning, for me, I was born in Middlesbrough, so the north of England, and I grew up in a small town called Gisborough. So everybody knew everybody. I had sort of a sister, mum and dad, really tight knit family. My granddad lived over the road from me, aunties and uncles round the corner, and I grew up probably had one of the best childhoods I could have ever wished for, really. I got told from a young age I was too small to play football, and for my county team, which again for somebody that loved playing football was really tough. I wasn't in an academy or a school of excellence, so I didn't attend an academy or school of excellence, and I got rejected from four different football clubs, Premier League clubs at the time. So Middlesbrough, Newcastle, Sunderland, and Nottingham Forest. So I played grassroots Sunday League all the way up until I was 16 years old, for Martin Juniors. And again, sort of in a really tight knit sort of group. When I was 16, I played with my friends, so I decided that I was going to leave Martin, and I played a year with my friends just before I left school. I managed to do really well. I scored a hat trick in a game, and there was a scout there, and I got offered a 2-year YTS at Darlington, who were in League Two in the English League. So that was what I did when I left school. I went straight from 16 straight into full-time football as a YTS. 3 months into that YTS, I got offered an England trial at Lilleshall with some of the best players in the country. I managed to go down there and get in. I scored a hat trick in the trial, and I managed to get picked. I travelled to Poland, and I represented England at the European Championships under 17s, under 18s. 6 months into my YTS, I signed for Newcastle United, who were one of the biggest clubs in the world at the time, for 1.2 million. I literally went in to train with the YTSs at Darlington, and the manager told me that my dad was going to pick me up and we were going to travel to St James's Park and sign on deadline day. And I signed, Sir Kenny Dalglish signed me for Newcastle, which again was a life-changing moment for me. Um, a year into that, Sir Kenny Dalglish got the sack. Ruud Gullit became the manager, and I went on loan to Hartlepool, my first loan at the age of 18. I then returned back to Newcastle, in 19, made my Premier League debut with Sir Bobby Robson, in front of 55,000 people, partner in Alan Shearer up front. Again, something that I'd never sort of envisaged, to stand there in front of 55,000 Geordies. But 10 years earlier, I fell in love with football watching England at the World Cup, and Sir Bobby Robson was the manager. So I sat in my living room at the age of 9, falling in love with playing football, and then 10 years later, fast forward to me standing with Sir Bobby Robson making my Premier League debut. Just something that that I found really hard to take. Um, just a little video for you to watch.
It could have been so different. Signed by Newcastle with high hopes.
One man who Bobby Robson reckons will be a hero, James Coppinger, a player that's been likened to Gianfranco Zola.
That dream never materialised, and after spells at Hartlepool and Exeter, Coppinger almost quit the game.
Never wanted to be a professional footballer. 16, I wasn't in a school of excellence. I never really wanted to I never saw myself becoming one, and then all of a sudden you go from Sunday League to signing for Newcastle for 1.2 million, and it's like, wow, this is unbelievable.
It could have been.
So again, for somebody that didn't want to be a professional footballer, I didn't think professional football was something that I could do. I then found myself leaving Newcastle and signing for Exeter. So I moved 360 miles away from home for the first time. So I was brought up in a really cosseted sort of bubble, I called it. And for the first time at the age of 21, I left Newcastle and signed for Exeter on a 2-year contract. Michael Jackson, David Blaine, and Uri Geller were directors at the club at the time. And I walked into not a circus act, but I walked into a club that was really, really struggling, had a losing mentality. And in the first season, we got relegated out of the Football League. And in the second season, I refused to go back down there. I ended up going back down there. The managers changed. I ended up having 5 managers in the 2 years. And we just missed out on the playoffs in my second season. So I went from Sunday League to Premier League to non-league in 5 years, which for anybody is a lot to take on the pitch. But off the pitch, people don't realise what you're going through as well. So at the age of 20, I lost my granddad to cancer. So my granddad was sort of somebody who I absolutely adored. He did everything for me, took me everywhere. And my mum and dad separated, so my mum and dad divorced. So I went from being in a happy home, thinking everything was fine, having to deal with, when I came back home, not having a home to go to. My mum had literally got up and left. And then my granddad passing away. Literally, I was in his home, laid next to him when he passed away, deteriorating for sort of 7 months. And I found that really hard. And I didn't really know how to deal with it. So again, that's why I'm saying sort of on and off the pitch is really important. I then signed for Newcastle, then signed for Doncaster age 23, which again was a huge turning point for me. I met my mentor, Terry Gormley, who changed my life on and off the pitch. So at that point, I was ready to quit football. I wasn't enjoying it. Within one session of working with Terry, making him or changing my perspective on what elite football was, it changed my outlook on everything. And from that moment on, things went from a different sort of outlook for me. In 2007, I went on to win the EFL Trophy at the Millennium Stadium in front of 70,000 people. I then got married in 2007 and started a family. So again, off the pitch, it was something that I made a conscious decision to do. I have 3 amazing kids who are grown up now, 17, 18, and my daughter's 11. I then won promotion, playing at Wembley in front of 80,000 people. Scored a hat-trick in the playoff semi-final. And we beat Leeds at Wembley 1-0 to go up to the Championship. I trekked in 2011 onto Machu Picchu in Peru for 10 days, raising 50,000 for the NSPCC. Again, another life-changing sort of moment for me. Just meeting people at schools in the Andes, just tasting what another sort of lifestyle looked like, how grateful these people were. Taking myself out of my comfort zone, again off the pitch, understanding that I can develop as a person as well. Back to football, spent 4 seasons in the Championship. For the first time in 50 years, Doncaster were in the Championship, playing at some amazing grounds, and had the opportunity to go back to Newcastle at St James's Park, and almost left at the age of 31, and sort of moved down south again to Ipswich, but I decided to stay at Doncaster. 2012, I experienced relegation for the first time after 4 seasons in the Championship. 2012, I ended up going on loan to Nottingham Forest. So one of the teams that had rejected me, Nottingham Forest, I ended up signing for. Newcastle I'd already played for that had rejected me, and I signed a 6-month loan deal on deadline day with my teammate Billy Sharp. I then project managed the building of my own home. So again, something that I set out when at 23 that I wanted to do. So again, I made a conscious decision to sort of study and work on sort of this side of my life, what I wanted to do after football, what I was doing while I was still playing football. So I did sort of things along. I did some sort of self builds, and then I managed to build my own home, which was an unbelievable experience. Sort of knocked the house down, rebuilt the house, lived in a caravan with the kids, and rebuilt it from scratch. Again, something that I would never have thought possible. Back when I got relegated out of the Football League and I was finding things hard, developing myself as a person, and looking at past football, what it looks like after football for me, was huge. Moving on to 2013.
Heard his name, but the moment most fans will remember him for is this one.
Brentford have a penalty in added time. If they score, they are up. And he's in a crossbar.
Surely you're not thinking, I know what's going to happen. He's going to ping it against the bar, rebound. I'm going to be an hero in 20 seconds.
Yeah, that's the last thing I was thinking.
Painter's breaking away. They're going to score to make it 1-0. They've scored. Coppinger's made it 1-0 at the other end.
So again, for me, I won promotion in 2013. We went up as champions. I scored that last second goal. So that was the last touch on the last day of the season to win the league. So if they'd have scored that penalty, Brentford would have gone up. They missed the penalty. We went down the other end. We scored. We won the league, and ended up going up. Something that, again, you wouldn't be able to write, as a young kid. Again, if I go back to me as a young kid, dreaming of playing football, things like that. You couldn't have dreamt that. 2014, again, experiencing relegation back to League One on the last day of the season. Leicester won the championship and moved up to the Premier League, and we ended up getting relegated back down to League One. 2015, I had my testimonial for 10 years service at Doncaster. Louis Tomlinson from One Direction is a big Doncaster fan. So he brought members of the One Direction, sold out all the boxes and was going around all the boxes with Louis. Louis was playing in one of the teams. I was playing in the other team. So it was an unbelievable moment for me and my family, a memorable sort of day for everybody. Got all my players that I'd played with back to play, and it's an unbelievable day. 2015, I founded Pro Mindset Academy. Working with players in the Scottish Premier League, the Premier League, the Championship, League One, League Two, LFE, PFA Business School, all other organisations, and this is individually and collectively. Working with players on mental performance, on off-field coaching. 2016, again, I experienced relegation into League Two with Darren Ferguson, so Sir Alex Ferguson's son. The year after, again, promotion, captain Doncaster Rovers to promotion at the age of 36, getting in PFA Team of the Season, PFA Player of the Season. So when most players are retiring at 35, or you get told to retire at 35, again, because I developed a strong mindset and mentality, I wasn't going to retire. I didn't want to retire. I set a target at 23 that I wanted to play till I was 40. And I managed to probably have my best season at 36. And like you say, getting PFA Team of the Season and nominated for PFA Player of the Season. I then wrote my own book in 2020, ahead of the game, A Professional Mindset, that was followed by Sir Kenny Dalglish, who signed me for Newcastle. An unbelievable opportunity and an unbelievable experience for me, writing a book and giving a different perspective on what I think elite football is and what you have to go through as an elite athlete. It's not an autobiography. It just gives you a different perspective on, again, what you go through and what you have to experience off the pitch. In 2021, I retired from professional football at the age of 40, breaking the all-time appearance record for Doncaster, 695 games. and then playing 816 career games. And this was through COVID, so there was no fans there. My dad, who'd watched me my whole career, wasn't there. You know, I had to walk out in front of no fans, which was really, really tough. Especially after well, I played for 23 years as a professional footballer, to walk out to nobody and play your last game was hard, but it was something that I'd made a decision to do. And obviously really looking forward to the next part of my journey. This is what my journey looks like in a graph. And I put this together just to give you a different perspective on what success looks like. For most people, they think success is an upward sort of curve, and that's what it is. But ultimately, what you're going to experience on your journey, you know, in college or whatever you choose to do, whether it's football, whether it's another sport, whatever you decide to do in life, whether it's not in sport, you're going to have disappointments. So for me at Darlington, starting here, moving to Newcastle, probably at the pinnacle, and then moving all the way down to the National League, I had no understanding of how to deal with disappointment, setbacks, success. I had no understanding of how to deal with success. All these things that, you know, you experience growing up as a young athlete, and nobody really tells you how to deal with them and you know how to piece them together to make the best of your ability. Until I'm moved here to Doncaster. I started working on my mental performance, on my mindset here, and I was so much more consistent in my outcomes, but in my habits and my actions every single day. So I just want to show you this video before we move on.
Here. This is the most important part for a football player. Is here, not here. It's here.
It's all in here. Yeah. It's all in the mind. I think, you know, how much do you want it?
The differences between the players at this level are so minimal that in the end it's more about mental than physically, because it's every 3 days you need to come back. There's no rest for us.
But the reason that these players are different is they've got something up here which means that they go home at night and being the best player in the world rocks their world.
55 caps, 2 goals. The last 20 caps, 15 goals. What's changed?
Mental. Worried about what people thought of me. He's not good at this, he's not good at that. You grow up, you mature, stop looking for people to give you validation. It's got to come from within.
The mentality giants were in town.
It's also about the mentality. When you go over to the first team dressing room, you go over to the first team pitch, it's mentality. Are you strong enough mentally?
Muscle or mentality?
Mentality. Mentality is the word, I think.
So again, I think you probably picked up on what we're going to go into, and throughout my journey, what sort of set me apart from everybody else. Again, I started working on mental performance and developing a strong mindset consciously from the age of 23. I set up Pro Mindset Academy at the age of 34 to help players, to help support players, parents, organizations, clubs on what I believe is the most important part of elite sport, which is mindset and mentality. So for you, I think going into your next part of your journey, or whether you're already on your journey, it's understanding what success looks like for you as a college athlete. Having a clear direction and focus is key. So before you do anything, understanding what you're getting into. I liken it to getting in the car and not putting in a destination. So not putting your sat nav on, not typing in a destination, and you're just driving around. So I did that for 3, 4, 5 years, especially when I was at Newcastle. I had no real understanding of what I wanted to achieve, what I was doing every single day to make me a better person and a better player. So I think it's clear that, if you haven't already done it and you don't know where you're going and you don't know what you want to achieve, I think that's the first place to start. And then how can Pro Mindset Academy best help you prepare for life as a college athlete? And this is how I think, we're already supporting players, but this isn't just me saying, look, we're the only ones doing this, we're the best doing this. This is something that if you're not doing it, you need to be going out and trying to find somebody to help you with this. The mental side of sport, developing and improving the way you think is key if you want to be successful. We do it by off-field coaching. So I believe that, on-field coaching is this. So we split it into 4 areas. So on-field coaching is physical and technical. So if you're a footballer, for example, you'll have coaches, you'll have S&C coaches within your environment. And growing up, you would probably play football all the time. You'd be running around, you'd be training in the gym, you'd be doing sprint work. But ultimately, football is changing. It's becoming more tactical. You need to understand your roles and responsibilities within the team. But the bottom part for me is the most important. So how you choose to think every single day. Mental performance is the most important part in my 23 years experience, but also when you speak to elite performers, you heard, the best in the world talking about it, the best coaches talking about it. Marcus Rashford said 95% of football is mentality. So if 95% of elite football or elite sport is mentality, what are you doing to improve that 95%? So I put together, it took me sort of 9 years to put this together, a mental performance framework. So again, I genuinely believe that there's not enough out there to improve in this area. So I made this as easy as it is to understand. So we start with the introduction to mental performance, what that is and what it looks like for you as an elite athlete every single day. So not just when you're performing on a match day or when you're performing doing another sport, it's every single day. What does mental performance look like for you? We start with self-awareness and accountability. So again, understanding, your identity as a player and as a person. So what I believe, again, going through my journey is I have 2 identities. I have one as a player and also one as a person. And you will as a college athlete. So when you're on the pitch and when you're off the pitch. So what does that look like? You'd be amazed at how not everybody wants to be the best player and not everybody wants to be the best person. You hear it all the time, I want to be the best player. I want to be a good person. But how many people want to actually live it every single day? In my experience, not a lot. So we'll go through that and give you a clear understanding of what your identity looks like on the pitch and off the pitch, and then create accountability. So we'll go through goal setting, set goals and targets. We go through process, we go through performance, and we go through outcome. So 3 ways to set goals. We then go through self-belief and confidence. So building self-belief and confidence, a huge thing. I was on a call last night with a player talking about this and talking about what self-belief looks like for him and what confidence looks like for him. And, he's a confidence player. I don't believe in that. If you're a confidence player, that means that you only perform when things are going well. So, and things aren't always going to go well for you. So you have to understand, how to control confidence and what that looks like. Resilience and courage. So stepping out of your comfort zone is huge, and being courageous in games. I played, especially when we were in the championship, for one of the worst teams in the championship. And, we'd go behind in games and I had to show courage to get on the ball. That was part of my identity as a player. I had to show courage regardless of what was going on, whether the fans were booing, whether we weren't playing well. I had to constantly try and do that. And that came from me applying that strategy every single day and working on that every single day. Leadership and communication, understanding how to lead, again, when things aren't going well, but also understanding how to communicate. And this was the game changer for me in terms of my levels of performance. I believe this allowed me to play till I was 40, learning how to communicate, not just on the pitch, but off the pitch. A huge part of that is 90% of how we communicate is non-verbal, 55% body language. So again, if you're in a stadium with 1,000 people, 80,000 people, they're not necessarily going to hear what you say, but they can see, how you react, how you hold yourself, how hard you're working. And that's a huge bearing on people's perception of you as a player. And it's exactly the same as a person. When you walk into a room, I can tell you a lot of the time whether somebody's confident, whether they're struggling, they're finding it hard, whether they're negative. So understanding how to communicate is key. And then teamwork and consistency. So you're an individual in a team sport a lot of the time, especially if you're a footballer. So learning how to be an individual in a team sport, understanding what your roles and responsibilities are in the team, and then how to play your part within the team is massive. I've seen so many individuals play in a team sport and be individuals and not last very long, not perform at their best, and find it really, really hard. And then we finish with the last one, consistency. I believe that that's what everybody's looking for. And you build consistency through process. It's not about focusing on outcome. I want to be the best player. I want to win the league. But yeah, what do you have to do to be the best player? What do you have to do to win the league? What do you have to do to win individual trophies? So that's what the framework looks like. It's delivered virtually. I work with people in China, America, Europe, all around the world. So we can deliver this online, weekly or monthly, and ongoing support with players. So through messaging, through groups, through community groups. This is backed up with something that I think is just as important, and it's becoming massive in football especially, but also in all other sports, is online game analysis. So we get footage of training every single day. We get footage of games, whether it's every weekend or every week. And then we telestrate it. We work on backing up sort of the mental performance framework with how you're performing as a player. So we don't have to come and watch every game. But if you're sending us footage of your training and your games, we have a good idea of, what your identity will look like. And a lot of the time, it's so good to watch yourself back. I think this was a key for me, again, being able to perform well every single week, every single day, was actually enjoying watching myself train and play football. I know it sounds a little bit egotistical, but like I designed how I was as a player, I designed that based on me working on my mentality, but also me watching myself play, perfecting certain things every single day, working on my identity so that I got in the team and I stayed in the team, and that allowed me to perform every single week. And it became a habit. It became something that I called a professional mindset. Just some examples of a player that we work with at Chelsea. So again, using the telestration. So part of his identity is a central midfielder, but part of his identity is to anticipate and land on second balls. So again, it just gives you a rough idea of, what that looks like, and how he does that, and how we do that, and then we can talk through it. And it's the same with this one as well. So this is exactly the same thing, but a training clip. So it's the same thing in training, and that's what I say. It's so important to not just think this is in the game. This is training as well. So again, these can last anywhere from sort of 2-3 minutes to 5 minutes, and again, it just gives us a good idea of what you're doing tactically as well as mentally, physically, and technically. So just the last few slides. So the benefits of working with us, or working on your mental performance, are probably the three things that I think everybody's looking for. Is optimal performance. So being able to perform at your best every single day. Being able to be fully immersed within your performance, in the zone, whatever you want to call it. Personal growth. So being able to develop and improve every single day. Again, I call it compounding. So I did this from 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, all the way up to 40. And by the time I got to probably 31, 32, 33, because I'd worked on this and because I developed this way of performing, it just became part of me. I didn't have to think about going on the pitch. I didn't have to think about doing certain things. Just became the norm for me. And that was down to personal growth. And this was off the pitch as well. I think I alluded to it in my journey, in terms of sort of looking to build a house, looking to build a business, write a book. All them things were down to me being conscious of developing as a person. But again, you've got to know what that looks like in how to do that. And then the last thing, well-being. So actually enjoying what you're doing is the key. So I absolutely loved playing football. I still love playing football. I loved the process of, getting better, improving, becoming a better person. And for me, working on this and developing this alongside your sort of technical stuff when you're on the grass every single day, alongside the physical stuff when you're in the gym. For most people, what I've felt or what I've seen, I think I said this to Liam, is if you're struggling or if you're finding it hard, you're not having a good performance, you're not playing well, your team's not doing well, the first thing you do is you work harder. So you go in the gym, you work harder, you go on the training pitch, you do more. Whereas for a lot of the time, or most of the time, it's down to how you think. It's down to other things. So again, covering all bases and working around everything, putting all the pieces together, is the key to these three things. The last slide. I always just want to share this because, again, I've always been passionate on it, but for the last 10 years doing this, sort of educating and supporting players, parents, clubs and organisations on the most important part of elite football. For the people that are on this call or listen to this presentation, I imagine that you've never heard anything like this. If you have, brilliant. If you're already doing it, excellent. But like the reason I came on this call tonight is to try and educate and support you on this. So if you don't hear from me again, if you decide to just take this presentation and add it to what you're already doing, excellent. Then I've achieved what I wanted to achieve. And the last thing, creating a better understanding of what it takes every day to perform at your best. Because right now you probably have an idea of what that looks like, but I just give you a different perspective and a different idea of what it looks like. So I genuinely believe if you added what we spoke about tonight to your game, to the way you live your life, you'll get better results. And that's it. So that is, I think, 30 minutes. Liam, if anybody's got any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Yeah, that was brilliant. Thanks, James. And I took some notes as well, just because there was so much that even for myself, being a former college athlete, I could definitely relate to. And just to, I guess, going off a bit on tangents here, but one of the key things that I got from what you said is, but being a college athlete, I guess the thing is you have only got 4 years to compete in America at your sport, so you have got that time limit. And a lot of the time, if an athlete's then going into that process, it's great to, I guess, set goals for what it looks like at the end of the 4 years. But like with your journey, James, we might have a footballer say, I want to get drafted into MLS. Well, the chances are you aren't going to have an amazing game, every game for 4 years and then just get drafted and everything's plain sailing. There is going to be setbacks and adversity. And also what I would say is for a lot of you, maybe when you're at a college where it's got unbelievable facilities, strength and conditioning, nutrition, you've got all the resources you need, but I guess it has to come from you in order to obviously get the best out of your ability. Just because the resources are there, you need to approach that in the right way. And even looking back at my own career, I wouldn't have said I was the most phenomenal player, but I definitely look back and felt like I got everything that I could out of my ability by approaching it in the right way. So even to your point, James, I used to watch back all my games, but then also I would maybe the day of the game watch back highlights of me scoring goals to try and put myself in a positive mindset and use visualization tactics. So definitely not to the levels that you have throughout your extended career, but I could definitely see that. I think my mental strength maybe then helped give me an edge throughout my career. But yeah, and the last thing I was going to say to the point in terms of college specifically, obviously, if you're doing a sport that's only a fall or a spring sport, you are going to have a real roller coaster of emotions throughout that short period. So if you're doing football and the season is actually September till November, you might have to deal with a loss and a win in the same week, or maybe you're not playing as many minutes. So I guess at the end of that rambling, a question on that one for you, James, from me was just like how best to deal with that for these athletes if they're going out. I guess they feel pressured because it's their first season or semester in America. If you have a game that doesn't go too well, like how did you used to do that, or from what you said is the importance of just having the same, not too high, not too low, or?
No, I think it's a really good question, and it's a question that most people ask. For me, it's about, again, understanding that you can change your thinking. So I developed a strategy called like a 24-hour rule strategy. So if I had a bad training session, or a bad game, I had 24 hours to feel sorry for myself. And then it would go in the bin. I literally would, like, in my mind, put it in the bin. And I don't know whether you've ever seen them when you're at an airport and you stand on, is it an escalator or a travelator type thing, and it takes you forward. Like, I very rarely went back ever in anything that I did in my career, because you're judged on your next game or your next training session. So it's so important to, again, sort of understand that that's what it is. So that would go in the bin, take what I need to take from it, whether it be look at it, analyze it. But the next session was the most important thing. And I think, again, understanding that I could do that, and then started to work on it. And then within sort of days, weeks, months, it became part of me. So if I'd sort of had a poor game, then, that just became part of me. I'd spend probably Sunday feeling a little bit sorry for myself or a little bit down. But as I got older, I started to sort of deal with it better. And it's the same with success, because, again, you're going to have really good games. I scored a hat trick in the semi-final, and it was about Wembley the next sort of week. So it was like I didn't have chance to live on that hat trick. It was about, right, I'm moving into the final at Wembley, so I had to sort of put that in the bin and then move on to the next game, and that's what it is with success as well. Sir Kenny Dalglish wrote the forward in the book, and he wrote, he played for Celtic, Liverpool, he won the European Cup, was probably one of the most decorated players of his era. He spoke about, having to manage success every single day. They had to churn out wins after wins after wins after wins, be the best, be the best, be the best. So again, it's not just disappointment, it's success as well. And, by understanding and learning about it and then applying it, taking action, that for me is the key.
Yeah, no, I think that's some great points there. And then the last question for me, and then I will shut up and put it over to everyone else, is a lot of the people that are listening to this are going to not only be playing in a new team with maybe teammates from, all over the world. I guess that arguably one of the hardest bits is actually transitioning to the fact that you're thousands of miles away while this is all going on. And obviously you talked about your experience when you moved hundreds of miles away from home. Is there any like advice you've got to deal with that? Because like you said, if your well-being and your mental health isn't, in top condition, it makes it difficult to perform at your sport.
Yeah, really, again, another good question. And I think a lot of it is down to environment and support networks. That's why mentorship for me is key. I work with players that have been through this and are going through this. One specifically who's moved from Texas to England, so he's gone the other way. And it's huge. So if I'm having a call with somebody every month, sort of having somebody to talk to around, on the pitch stuff, but also off the pitch stuff as well. It might be a parent, it might be friends, whatever it is, it's understanding, how to best make yourself feel. Again, going back to the well-being thing, make yourself feel in the best shape possible every time you go into training. And that again, there's techniques and strategies to do that. And a lot of the time people aren't aware of that. Again, building resilience, taking yourself out your comfort zone for people that are on the call, if they're moving abroad, if they're going to America, like, first of all, like, that's an unbelievable achievement in itself, doing that and taking yourself out your comfort zone and moving to a different country and experiencing things like that. So again, you've got to take credit for that. Almost, it should make you feel proud that you've achieved that without actually going on and performing or going on and having a fantastic education. Just doing that is brilliant. So yeah, I think, again, it comes down to education. A lot of the stuff that we do is around, learning to make yourself feel good, putting yourself in a good position, put yourself in a good state. Again, I go back to it. We only know what we know. So I just love that quote, because, again, until I realized that I could do this and develop it and change my thinking to change the way sort of my outcomes were, I had no idea.
Yeah, no, spot on. So yeah, at this point, if anyone does have any questions, feel free to either drop it in the chat or unmute yourself and feel free to ask away. If not, I've also got plenty of other questions, but I'll probably end up keeping you here all night, James. So
again,
Liam, it's Marcus. Do you want to ask a question?
Yeah, go for it.
James, thanks. That's really interesting. Obviously, you're from a football background. Some people on this call, including us, are non-footballers, track athletes.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the stuff you've spoken about is obviously transferable and really important. But do you deal with non-footballers, and if so, how do you modify your approach for their specific sport?
Yeah, again, it's all based through the framework. They're the same. It's the same thing. Mental performance is the same thing. So the application of and development of mental skills, perspectives, attitudes, strategies, and processes that lead to the three things that we spoke about. So it's exactly the same thing. You know, if you want to perform at your best, if you want to continue to develop and improve, not just as a track athlete but as a person, it's the same thing. And then if you want to feel happy about what you're doing, again, not just on the pitch, off the pitch, it's exactly the same thing. So we do work with other sports and we do tailor it to suit sort of individual needs, depending on what that sport is, really. Good question, great. Marcus. Thank you.
Anyone else? And what I would add to that as well is I think it's a good point is if you took all the most successful sports people across all college sports, they're all going to have similar traits, James, I'd guess as well. And, you know, if you look at the type of people that have come through the college system, whether it's Michael Jordan or Tiger Woods or Kevin Durant or Scotty Scheffler, all of those athletes will be doing exactly the things that James is talking about in terms of having the right approach to every single practice, to every single game, and maximizing their ability, no doubt at all.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think so again, this and I don't profess to be the only one doing this or saying this, but this is the way we do it. But having an identity as a performer, again, I liken it to an actor or an actress going on stage. So getting into character, you know, if you're a track athlete getting ready to race, or if you're a footballer getting ready to go on the pitch, or a tennis player getting ready to go on the court, like you then get into your identity as a performer. As soon as you come off the pitch or the court or the track, it's then you can be the person. Like for a lot of athletes, they presume that they have to be the athlete all the time. Again, I developed a strategy. When I drove into the training ground, I became the player. And when I drove out the training ground, I became the person, because balance for me was key to my career. You know, I wanted to be married, happily married. I wanted to have kids. I wanted to have good relationships with my parents and my friends. You know, I wanted to have good relationships with fans, but I couldn't be that player all the time because that wouldn't allow me to do that. And when I was younger, especially, I found it really hard to go home and not focus and think about football, especially if things hadn't gone well. So again, just understanding that you can split the two. What it did for me as well, it gave me a real hunger when I went into James as the player. So every time I drove into the training ground, I couldn't wait to get in there to become the player. But it was the same, you know, when things weren't going well, I could then become the dad or the husband or the friend or whatever it is. So going back to Marcus's point, it's exactly the same. And you're right, Liam, I think regardless of the sport, you're still experiencing the same sort of mental skills.
Yeah, that's such a phenomenal point there, because for everyone listening, James, I guess almost three identities, because you're going to have to balance being an elite level athlete, being a student, because obviously without this part, then the athlete part, isn't it, as well as then being a person. So yeah, I think that's such an important point to recognize that as well, because I guess it can be easy. I love the 24-hour rule, because if not, it could be easy to let your feelings about the performance then impact your studies, to then impact how you are as a person. And I'm guessing that could then soon escalate to be quite negative.
Yeah, and for most people, they don't realize they can do that. As in, they don't realize they can change their thinking. What it did for me, going back 23 to when I was 23, like it gave me control of my life. Up until that point, I was being controlled by the outside world, I call it, external factors, other people, social media, fans, managers, coaches, people that I didn't even know, they were controlling what I was doing. And then I realized that I could take control and start to learn how to be a better player, a better person, and be happy by doing that. It was a game changer for me.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And also what you said was, I think, great in that in terms of like if you're in a team sport, you being selected, don't let other factors like body language or, James's body language is always great. He's always on time for training. He's always ready to perform, like all of those factors that are under your control, which can then help influence external factors, I guess, like a coach's decision, whether he can rely on you or bring you on or start you as well.
Yeah, and that's what I've sort of transitioned into coaching and recruitment as well. And when I watch other players, it's the first thing you watch for when you're recruiting players. It's character. It's what is he like as a person. Um, so understanding, how to communicate and how to be a good person. Understanding, how to lead, how to communicate on the pitch. If you're in a team sport, understanding how to do that is absolutely massive for you to progress. And I go back to what I said right at the beginning, which was, what does success look like for you as a college athlete? I think that is where you start because, if you're going to college and you just want to be part of, the setup and you don't want to be the best player and the best person, then that's fine. But if you do, then, there's ways that you can, become better than other people. There's ways that you can get to the top. There's ways that you can potentially leave college and move into professional sport. I genuinely believe that. I've seen it. I've done it. I wasn't at an academy or a school of excellence. And then I played professional football for 23 years when the average sort of lifespan is 8 years. So it boils down to, what do you want out of your career? What do you want out of your life ultimately?
Yeah, and for these athletes, some of them are only starting the process, but to your point, in terms of how you prepare yourself, even and how you are as a person, when you're speaking to these college coaches, being on time, being a good communicator, seeming interested, having good body language, doing your research, all of these things can actually help, as in it's competitive for limited scholarships. And if I've got two athletes and they've got similar times and similar grades, how you come across and your maybe professionalism and approach can actually influence their decision as well. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, look, it's definitely complex for sure, and there's multifaceted things here. But again, that's why, obviously, James, you're able to help your athletes deal with what can be a challenging thing to navigate at a very young age, which is what all of these athletes are going to be going through. But yeah, unless anyone else has any other questions, really appreciate you joining us on a Friday evening. I definitely found it super interesting and really helpful. And we thank you again, James, for your time. And hopefully this isn't the last time that you can kind of come on and speak to our athletes as well. But I didn't know if you had any last comments or thoughts.
No, I think anybody that's on that wants to get in touch or wants to be supported. I think we're on social media, so we're on Instagram, all social media platforms really. If there's any way that we can help you, just get in touch. Again, genuinely want to help people, players, athletes try and be the best they can be. If there's anything that I can do to help and support that, just let me know.
Brilliant. Thanks again for that, James. And yeah, hope you all found it beneficial. And as I said, if anyone wants to get in touch with James as well, like we